In this video, I will show you which projects are most in demand among investors who want to grow and preserve their capital. In short, to buy real estate as safely and profitably as possible. Let's get started. Some people want to profit from price growth, others from rental income. And all these people have chosen these projects because they consider them the most attractive. But is that really the case? Is what's popular actually profitable? Let's figure it out in this video. I'll tell you right away that I can't talk about the downsides of these projects because developers in Batumi might see it as damaging their business reputation. So of course, in this video we'll only be discussing the advantages of these projects. And if you're interested in my full opinion, you can always check the description for this video, message me on WhatsApp or Telegram, and we can chat and discuss everything in as much detail and depth as possible. I decided to structure this video as follows. I'll tell you about a project and then share a thought or fact that should prompt you to reflect on the real reasons behind price increases, price drops, or the safety of the investment. All of these considerations will be extremely useful for you because they are the cornerstone of investing, including in Batumi and not just there. And yes, very briefly about myself. I've been in real estate for 12 years and I have extensive experience with various projects. I help people enter and exit projects. And I've seen many projects that didn't increase in value and many that grew well in price. I know what people made money on and what they lost money on. This experience gives me the confidence today that I choose good projects and I can see how they are growing in value here. These are not just empty words. If anyone is interested in more information about me, you can also follow the link in the video description and read about it. The first project you can consider, which can definitely be called popular right now, is Silk Towers. The project is located in the oldest part of the city. If you search for Batumi, you'll see the tower, the Alphabet Tower, and the Ferris wheel. Basically, this whole thing is located right next to them. The project as a whole is done more or less beautifully, meaning it's the work of Kengo Kuma. That's the company, a renowned architect from Tokyo. The facade is being done by a team from London, the landscaping is being planned by Copenhagen, and in fact, they're building it themselves. Silk development. Please note that the lower floors here will face the neighboring buildings. Up to the 10th floor, if I remember correctly, up to the 10th, they will be looking at the neighboring buildings. Above that, you start to get panoramic views. They promise a particularly beautiful facade here, and there will be a casino. But whether the casino will help with occupancy is a big question because in most projects the casino buys out its own rooms to accommodate people there. Why? Because their guests stay for free, they bring people in, meet them and accommodate them at no charge. They put people in the rooms just so they play and spend money, so it's not profitable for the casino to pay you a lot of money for rent. Well, at least that's the concept in most cases. And whether there will be any profit from the casino here is still a big question. So they promise a beautiful facade and landscaping. They've made a park now. The park turned out to be more or less interesting. Here you can see the location. Frankly, it's not the most interesting location. Of course, there will be cafes and restaurants. There will be a pool and a spa area. What else will there be? There will be 4 buildings. They promise to finish it by 2029. This is how the facade will look, and they also promise some landscaping around it. Of course, there will be studios, 1-bedroom apartments, another version of a 1-bedroom, which is basically also a 1-bedroom, well, 1+1, so to speak, and this is a 2+1. The layout is also generally interesting, meaning it's unusual, so it's been done in a more or less interesting way. The designer did a good job, I have to say. This is the kind of park they ended up with. They're planning it, and in the picture, of course, the trees are already fully grown. Right now, all the trees have just been planted and are still small, but overall it looks more or less beautiful and interesting. I actually walk there quite often myself, and the park is pleasant, even with the small trees. Imagine when they grow up. Of course, it will be interesting. There's a yacht club, but the yacht club will have only a very small number of spots. So if you're a fan of this kind of thing, you can certainly try your luck in the drawing there. There are just a very, very limited number of spots, so maybe you'll get one if you really want it. You can take a closer look at the project, or you can write to me, and I'll tell you more about it in detail, but for now, let's move on to the next project. The first important point is that you shouldn't buy new builds in the economy or comfort segments. Let me explain why. Because any new build in the comfort or economy segment is more expensive than properties on the secondary market. What does that mean? For example, a property on the secondary market might cost $1,500 per square meter, while a new build might cost you, for example, $2,500 per square meter. What will happen if you buy it? You'll end up selling it at a loss later, just like many people do here. You don't have to take my word for it, you can just go and check for yourself on any platform. Take any new development, open a secondary market website, research the prices, and you'll see that these prices are significantly lower than those from the developers. So you don't have to wait 3, 4, 5, or even 7 years for the property to be built, and you don't need to tie up your money. You can buy a ready property at a lower price, and that's definitely something you should think about. That's exactly why I don't talk about or review economy or comfort class projects. It's simply pointless because people lose money on them. You won't make any profit, you can only buy them for one reason, if you want to live there yourself. If you want to live there, you can buy even above market price, live and enjoy life, but definitely not for making money. For those interested in an analysis of various Batumi projects, I have a video here that you can watch. In it, I talk about locations and districts, which might be interesting to some of you. The next project is, of course, the artificial island as a whole. On the plus side, I can say that this is the city's calling card, because when you enter the city, this building, this structure will be impossible to miss, and it will significantly change the cityscape. This is how it will all look. Right now, they are building the first building themselves, but according to their statements, all the other buildings will be constructed by hired contractors. So what's here? Here, of course, we have some kind of infrastructure, but again, just like in the previous building, it will be paid, meaning there won't be any free infrastructure here. For some people, that's a plus. For others, it's a minus. So what else will be here? There will be a beach with sand, as they say. So there will be various cafes and restaurants, a business environment, and retail spaces. They also promise yachting, just like in the previous project. They promise some kind of education and development as well. We'll see how that gets implemented. There will be some public spaces, a spa area, a swimming pool, that goes without saying, sports and medical facilities, something they're building. The company that's creating and filling these islands has experience. They've already built similar structures in other parts of the world. So they're saying that it will be done with quality. What else can be said about it? This is our first building with such a layout. So there are plenty of one-bedroom apartments, studios, and 2-bedroom units overall. There are also penthouses here. These are the kinds of designs they'll have. For the apartments, this is a 1+1 layout. This is how it will look. This is a 2+1 layout. Also like this, the story is that the D3 design studio, as they claim, did the projects for them. So, in general, here's another project for you to consider. Let's move on. The next fact is that the developer who is building for people does not keep their promises, the ones they make. Why does this happen? Because essentially they've already taken your money. At the moment they took your money, they already made their profit. And then comes the time to fulfill their obligations. But how are these obligations fulfilled? They are fulfilled naturally according to the minimum criteria. Why the minimum? Because that way the margin is higher and they make more profit. For example, if they took $2,000, a good project might require spending $1,500. But if they spend only $1,000, then pocketing $500 per square is a much more pleasant profit than just $500 per square. That's what I'm explaining to you. This is the basic principle. For this reason, as of today, there is not a single project in the economy and comfort segments from developers that has fulfilled all its promises. There are developers who have fulfilled some of their promises, but of course there are more developers who have not fulfilled their promises at all. And I've already told you the reason for this. Why do I say for people? Because often developers build for brands. And in those cases, the brand requires them to maintain standards of quality, materials, finishing, infrastructure, to deliver everything on time, and so on. Often developers build for themselves, meaning they are not building to sell to someone else, but are constructing for their own use so that the hotel will later be managed by themselves, or it doesn't matter, by their own rental organizations, and essentially will generate income for them. And in those cases, they are also forced to do everything properly with the infrastructure, because otherwise, well, there simply won't be good profitability. And naturally they do it. But when they start building for you, your income doesn't concern them at all. What's the most important thing? The most important thing is to create a super attractive image so they can get as much money as possible. Now I'll show you some pictures, for example. Here the developers made promises. Some promised a pool, some promised a botanical garden, some promised a fitness center. Not only is it small, but when I went in there, I don't know, maybe they've changed it now, it reeked terribly of rubber. They just laid down outdoor rubber and it was impossible to stay inside. The reason is simple. The less you invest, the more you keep in your pocket. I'm talking about the developer's motivation here. This is how it works. And if you keep this thought in mind when choosing your next project, I guarantee it will help you a lot. I'm saying this so as not to make the video longer. I'm not telling you about the developer's prices today because prices vary. They're different depending on the floor, different depending on the view. I've pinned a link in the description of this video. You can follow it. I've uploaded the price lists for the projects I'm talking about there. Check out the prices yourself if any of these projects interest you. The next project is quite popular. It's Rotana. This is an Arab brand, a pure brand unlike other projects where it's just local real estate. Here what we have is branded real estate, which brings with it certain both advantages and limitations. For example, you can't live here permanently, but in return you get a bit more higher rental yield. So what's interesting here? There will be a set of branded amenities, a casino, a restaurant, a rooftop bar, and a gym. There are indoor pools, various open bars, a private beach, a business lounge, a conference hall, a wine boutique, a garden, parking, and so on. Unlike previous projects, this will be done according to branded standards and it will be a unified infrastructure ecosystem. So when a tenant arrives, they don't just get a room from you, they get access to the entire infrastructure, as is customary with these high-end international brands. And this is a very important point to consider. All of this magnificent splendor is located right here in Gonio. Accordingly, of course, they are promising significant returns on investment here, some quite good ones, let's say. But that is really a separate, more detailed discussion for another time. Overall, the project is also worth considering. Because there's practically no pure brand that you can buy here in Batumi. These are literally one-off projects, and many of them have already increased in price to their final value. Therefore, this point also absolutely needs to be taken into account. We are moving on to the next project. The next fact is that developers, especially large developers, very often prohibit assignment of rights. What does this mean? You entered the project at the stage, for example, of the foundation pit, at some initial stage or one close to the beginning. And they tell you you signed the contract, but you won't be able to resell this apartment until the construction is completed. The problem here is that there are thousands of people like you there. Well, as a rule, these are large-scale projects and so on. So the trouble is that when you want to resell, everyone else will want to resell as well. Because these same hundreds of people were also waiting for the project to be completed. And accordingly, they will also be able to resell. So what happens? By the time the project is completed, there is a huge number of listings. What does a large number of listings mean? It means that the market cannot absorb it all at once. If the market can't absorb such a volume of listings at once, people lower the price in order to sell somehow. Yes, not everyone. Some won't lower the price, but many will. By doing so, they undercut the market and show that this product is cheap naturally or has a low or even a very small price. Of course, they achieve their goal and sell, but everyone else loses the opportunity to sell at a high price. This is the most crucial factor. And in such projects, prices often drop to zero or sometimes even lower. What does it mean, down to zero? It means that prices drop to the amount you paid for it. Or they can even fall below the price you paid, which happens more often. Actually, right now I'm talking to people who have bought various projects and I'm asking them, how do they sell? What kind of profit do they make? And most people say they sell at a loss. And that's just stating a fact. So just because you buy at the start of sales doesn't guarantee that you'll make a profit. But the fact that assignments are prohibited definitely tells you that you won't get the kind of profit you dream about when you exit. And another important downside is that when you enter such a project, with assignments prohibited, this kind of project can drag out the construction timeline. For example, they might tell you it will take 4 years, but in reality it ends up taking 8 years. And these are major developers. There are some here who actually build for 8 years. Even after 8 years of construction, they still haven't finished the infrastructure. They've only handed over the apartments to people. They'll probably be working on the infrastructure for another 4 years. So if you end up in a situation like this, not only can you not exit at a reasonable price, but your money is also tied up for a very long period of time. And if you suddenly need that money, even putting profit aside, you might just need the cash. So don't get yourself into a situation like this. Don't play these games where you enter a project in which you can't resell until construction is finished. That means a lot of people are waiting, and all these people will want to act on their intentions at the same time when the building is completed. Of course, this isn't the only reason people end up selling at a loss, meaning they sell for less than they invested. In this video, I talked about almost all the reasons why people sell at a loss. These are the reasons you might end up in these unpleasant situations and get negative returns instead of an investment. Watch the video, it's definitely going to be useful. Our next property is Alliance Centropolis. What's interesting here? Well, first of all, the location. The location is close to the old city. 0. The line and all that and so on means there will be a block of Hayat here. Of course, you have nothing to do with it. They have their own numbers, their own infrastructure. It's all separately isolated, let's say, like the big trade and exhibition center. Yes, where all sorts of things will be held, including events and other things. What else will be interesting here? The infrastructure for people. At the same time, in the developers' previous projects, there was no infrastructure for people. Here they claim that there will be, that is, here it is promised. For example, in this project, again, there is a separate branded infrastructure, but specifically for people where you could, for example, use it for free, there wasn't any. Here they say that it will be clear that this will be paid usage, but nevertheless, at least it will exist, which I consider a plus. And again, we'll see what it will be like, because that's very important. As of today, let me remind you, there isn't a single developer in Batumi who has built good infrastructure for people. There isn't, to my great regret. What will happen here, we will see. Well, as you can see here, yes. There are amenities like a bar, fitness center, parking, casino, restaurant, video surveillance, the usual standard set, nothing special. That's the kind of project it is. There is a very large number of apartments here, an enormous number of apartments, really. 3 blocks. Well, all this splendor will be completed someday. That is, it's already under construction for a certain period now. And as of today, we can see that the first block is ready in its shell. The second block is a little over halfway done. The third block has just barely started construction. So you can draw your own conclusions about the pace of construction. This is how they propose the infrastructure will look. There are both outdoor and indoor pools. A bowling alley is shown here, some kind of movie theater, a children's area, and so on. And now we're moving on to the next project. The next fact about this market. Most developers who promise you, for example, business class, end up building comfort class instead. Why does this happen? Because first of all, they've already taken the money, so there's no need to fulfill their promises. They've received the money, they've made their profit, everything's great for them. The next story is about how, especially now, it's relevant that many have started to promise and are promising to build a genuine premium product. As everyone says, everything is premium with us. Even if you go to a developer who is clearly building economy or entry-level comfort class, they'll tell you, we're building premium. So imagine that you bought a Zhiguli, and the next day you go to the Zhiguli factory and they tell you, we'll make you a Mercedes. Well, logically, you wouldn't believe that. I mean, that's absolutely reasonable. But for some reason, when it comes to real estate, people fall for these stories where developers who used to build comfort class promise to build premium. They won't build it, guys. They'll never build it because you need a lot of expertise. You need people. You need, yes, in the true sense of the word, you need a certain mindset to create a great product that will later rent out for a high price that will be consumed and purchased by a solvent audience. First of all, there aren't many solvent buyers. There are far fewer of them than those with lower purchasing power. Secondly, you have to know how to build such products. And there's a very good example on the market. These 2 developers, the pictures I'll show you now. They promised to build business class housing at a time when comfort class was just starting to appear on the market. In other words, there was basically only economy class, and the first comfort class projects were just entering the market. They promised to build business class housing with infrastructure, everything luxurious with a shopping center and all the other amenities. So what do we have as a result? After 8 years of construction, well, about 8 years of construction, this is what we have. Each developer has delivered only 1 building. So when the next buildings will be completed is still a question. When the infrastructure will be completed is an even bigger question. In other words, it doesn't even come close to business class. That's just how it is. Some people believe that a miracle will happen. Maybe it will, and that they really will finish building the business class housing. Well, okay. But the fact remains that there are quite a few developers here who tried to build something they simply aren't capable of building. That is, they lack both expertise and other necessary things. And they got stuck with long construction timelines and so on. That's why if you choose a good project, and you absolutely must, you should only choose a good project. There's no point in getting into low margin ones, that's for sure. You need to look at what the developer has actually built for people and how much it costs on the secondary market. This is an important detail. Of course, I have real estate projects that I consider the best on this market in terms of capital growth and rental yield. If anyone is interested, you can go to the description of this video. There's a link to my Telegram channel. Just click it, send me a message, and we can chat. I'll tell you what I like in this market and what is truly profitable here. Another project is Wyndham Residence. This is not the most expensive line from Wyndham. Of course, it's also a brand. This is important here, and that's a key nuance. This line offers a modest set of amenities, but the basics are, of course, a swimming pool, fitness center, and spa area. There's also a conference room and so on. So if you've stayed at affordable branded hotels in the $100 to $150 range, this is exactly that kind of story. It's also located in Gonio, and here we have a fairly high degree of completion. As you can see, there will be a rooftop restaurant and other features. This is how it looks now. Actually, it probably looks even better already. The finishes will be of this kind of quality. Naturally, all of this will be up to brand standards, and of course, there will be a private beach. As for the rest, I already mentioned there will be 576 apartments. Well, they call it premium, of course. But I think it's actually more of a business class, because Wyndham Residence doesn't really imply premium real estate. But here it says premium. But business class is also good because there is very, very little of it in Batumi. In general, there are very few branded premium or business class properties in Batumi. This segment is just beginning to develop, and I'm sure it has a great future ahead. Provided the project is good, and I want to emphasize that having a good project is extremely important because the project must be properly executed. There are many important nuances to consider in order for you to make good money from it. Of course, I can't cover everything in this video, but let's keep moving forward. And the main idea for today, if you want to earn well and buy safely, is this. It comes down to choosing projects that will attract a solvent audience. The kind of audience that currently stays at Hilton's, Marriott's, Sheraton's paying $200 a night or more. There you'll have very good profits and good margins. But the problem is that there are very few such projects. And essentially any project where the rental rate is above $100 per night already offers you some very positive prospects for a yield of 8% per year or more. How do you identify such projects? You look at the completed projects by the developer and check what the rental prices are there. Just go on booking.com. Go on booking.com, or you can also check some real estate websites, but booking.com is better. If the rental price there is below $100 per night, forget about it. You won't get a good yield there. Your yield will be up to 5% per year from rental income. Properties that yield up to 5% per year from rent are also priced accordingly. It won't be expensive, and there won't be any profit margin there either. If you see that the price is above $100 per night, that's great. That's already the first factor indicating that this project, this developer's project, is worth looking at and studying in more detail, more thoroughly. Of course, this is not the only factor, obviously, but it is a very important trigger. It is a very important indicator that the developer knows how to create products that can be rented out at a high price. This is very important. And the next important point is that when you find such a product, please pay attention to whether this project was built for people or for the developer themselves. That is, if the developer was building for the brand, this does not suit you. Why? Because in that case, the brand sets all the standards, and when they start building for you, you won't get that kind of product. Or the developer was building for themselves when they needed to earn rental income personally. In that case, they also create a great product because they need to earn money themselves. If he starts building for you later, it's a completely different story. That's why you're looking at the projects that the developer built for the people. And look at the rental price there. This is very important. Why is this such an important, serious marker? Because you can't cheat a solvent client. He has a wealth of experience in different countries of the world, and he simply won't go to a bad project. In other words, if the project is low level, unimpressive, and of poor quality, these people have seen a lot. They won't pay you $200 to $300 per day for some nonsense. That's just a fact. Now you'll see a screenshot from booking.com. You can take a look. Here's the first line. People are renting for 500 lari per day, and on the line below, they're renting for 50 lari per day. And the difference in rental price is tenfold. 10 times, just think about that. The difference in the price of this real estate is not tenfold. I'm telling you, the difference is probably about 2 times. That is, if you buy a good, expensive, high-quality product, it doesn't mean it costs 10 times more. No. Well, of course, it's significantly more expensive to build, but not by that much because the materials are better, the concept is better, there's infrastructure and many other things. But In terms of rental income, it will bring you 5 to 10 times more. Yes, because this is a conceptually strong product, and most importantly, it will attract a completely different audience. Whether you believe it or not, whether you've visited these hotels or not, it doesn't matter. If the project attracts people, then they will go there. Even if you're used to staying at hotels that cost $30 to $50, just try staying once at a good, expensive project. Right here, I have a video where I talk about the Paragraph Hotel. It is fully booked year-round. Of course, in January, February, and December, occupancy is a bit lower naturally. That is, it's not fully booked, not 100% occupancy, maybe 50 to 60% occupancy. In the summer, it's completely packed. I personally wanted to book a room there for my client. In the summer, it didn't work out. The rooms were simply all taken. Sometimes a single room might become available, but it's just one or two, no more. And the average annual occupancy of these hotels is really great. And in this video, I explained the reason why. Why does it work this way? This will be extremely useful for you, and it might even change your perspective on quality products. Because it's precisely quality products that bring you good income. There is one downside to this whole story. There are very few good, high-quality real estate properties like the ones I'm telling you about. They're scarce not only in Georgia, but in any location. That is, properties where a solvent audience will go, where you can get a good margin and added value, great ones and so on. There are very few of them in any location. And this is absolutely not a Georgian problem. This is where we say goodbye. See you in the next videos. And by the way, if you watch my channel, please let me know what you feel is missing in my videos. It will be valuable and useful for me, and perhaps I will change the material somewhere, adjust it for you, because your feedback is very important to me. Bye.